Hello and welcome. I am Lars from Pelt and I am with Seth Ligthart, and today we will present our final report for the ATAERA 2020 Safety Challenge, in which we address multinational cockpit crew challenges in East African aviation. During this presentation we will answer the following questions, starting with why this study is important. We then continue with discussing what we wanted to achieve, what we used, what we did with the data, and what the results are. But first, let us start with discussing the first question. Why is this important? Throughout the history of aviation, aeroplanes have changed significantly, while the uses and their inputs have not. A NASA investigation in the late 1950s showed that so-called human error is involved in 70% of the aviation accidents, which later were found to often be culturally influenced. As a result, the FAA started to develop specialized training programs to mitigate these human errors. All these programs together were called Crew Resource Management and trained the effective use of all resources available to the flight crew, including equipment, technical or procedural skills, and the contribution of flight crew and others up to this day. Boeing and Canadian Aviation Electronics stated that 30,000 new pilots are needed in Africa within the next decade. What this means is that a great number of pilots from outside of Africa, as well as their cultures, will be imported into the African aviation sector, creating a multinational cockpit crew challenge. To mitigate the effects of this safety challenge, ATAERA and the AviAssist Foundation collaborated by initiating a competition in which we are challenged to produce a CRM training and risk mitigation plan for East African airlines. For this, we have set up the following main research question. What contemporary CRM training and risk mitigation plan for multinational cockpit crews is the most effective and culturally fitting for operators in East Africa? In order to answer this main research question, we have used a number of methods, which will now be discussed by my teammates.
So what did we use? The things that were utilized are as follows. Status for dimensions, 5 accident and serious incident case reports, and a questionnaire. Status dimensions are power distance, uncertainty avoidance, collectivism, and masculinity. With the accident and incident reporting, we focused on the human factors, the CRM-related aspects, and the preventative measures. The questionnaire had 7 sections, where section 1 entails the general information of the pilot, like nationality and age. Sections 2 through 6 entail closed questions regarding status for dimensions and CRM, followed by section 7 with 2 CRM-related open questions. In total, 120 pilots filled in the questionnaire, where the pilots originated from all over the world except Oceania. The pilots were all employed within 12 different East African airlines, and the data was processed through Python. So what did we do with the data? Well, first off, we identified the safety contributing behaviors, after which we identified the safety leadership aspects, and finally we identified the CRM-related training gaps. In total, 18 safety contributing behavioral traits were determined and categorized, where the main categories are being sufficiently aware of the environment, proper communication, and proper management of people. Regarding safety leadership, 2 negative and 2 positive CRM case studies were used. The case studies entailing negative or bad CRM are the Tenerife collision disaster and Air France flight 447. The Tenerife disaster stands out as the prime example of how not to work in a cockpit. Here, poor communication, a stressful environment, and a breakdown of coordination resulted in the worst accident in aviation history. Air France flight 447 was influenced by the fight over the controls in the cockpit by the pilots, and the flight was influenced by the misinterpretation and disregard of some of the onboard instruments. The case studies entailing positive or good CRM are the Hudson River ditching and United Airlines flight 323. The Hudson River ditching utilized good task distribution, reciprocation of statements, and correct phraseology to safely land the aircraft on the Hudson River. The pilots on board United Airlines flight 323 used intelligent distribution of labor, task-oriented and responsive communication to use the engines for steering and save many lives in the process. The CRM training gaps were determined by analyzing the nationality diversity in East African airlines, the captain and first officer relationships, and the dimensional relationships found in the questionnaire. For what we can see in the table is that there are a lot of European nationalities in many East African airlines. Ethiopian Airlines has the highest nationality diversity in the cockpit, whereas Air Madagascar has the least nationality diversity in the cockpit. Regarding the CRM training gaps, the data from the questionnaire showed no major differences between the captains and the first officers within the 4 dimensions and CRM. Only 2 questions in the questionnaire resulted in some difference between the 2 titles, CRM question 3 and 8. On average, the first officer scored higher in CRM question 3 than the captain, indicating that the first officer has higher awareness. And again, on average, the first officer scored higher in CRM question 8 than the captain, indicating that the first officer has higher uncertainty avoidance. What was also determined is that when power distance increases, masculinity increases, which was statistically significant. This relationship seems logical as the two dimensions are closely related. The other dimensional relationship that is statistically significant is the relationship between power distance and CRM. When power distance increases, CRM decreases significantly. This would indicate that a low power distance is preferred within the pilot sample.
So the next question is, what are the results then? The results of this study consist of the determined training gaps and measures and the training plan based on these measures. First of all, the training gaps that we determined relate to inequality for the power distance dimension and to cultural differences in terms of, for example, communication for other dimensions. Based on these training gaps, the number of measures of which each forms the CRM module for each dimension are constructed. All of them are based on the input from the participants of the questionnaire, as well as 2 interviews held with professionals in East African aviation. The first module is regarding power distance, which starts with an activity where different people have to work together playfully to achieve a common goal. 2 examples of such games are Forefathers or Team Bokeball. After this, examples of inequality of any form within the workplace are to be discussed and reflected upon the previous activity. Through this, awareness is created by practice and by individual subconscious realization, as everyone literally worked together a moment ago. Next up is the uncertainty avoidance module, which starts with an exercise to train identification of different threads of different communication styles. This is to be supplemented with an interactive seminar, during which theoretical parts are explained to highlight the impact of different communication styles and to enhance awareness. Given the collectivist culture, the collectivist module starts with an initial activity during which participants only get to know each other. This is to be supplemented with a brainstorm session on how individual national cultures reflect to the organizational culture. This not only offers a moment for individual realization, but also valuable information for the organization and its continuous improvement. The masculinity module targets improving awareness of differing ways of perceiving or clarifying through the stated exercise. After this, again an open discussion is to be conducted on these topics to help participants identify differences and positive elements of other cultures as well. The last module focuses on organizational safety culture through a textual framework in which this is presented. To improve a participant's self-awareness of their personality in contrast to this culture, also a DISC profile personality test is to be conducted. This data, however, is private and thus relies on organizational trust put in the employees. All measures together form the training plan, which requires 8 working days for preparation, 4 for testing, 4 for evaluation, and another 4 for implementation and standardization. It requires a total of just less than $175,000 and will translate to a 25% reduction in accidents and incidents as a consequence of CRM. We would like to thank you very much for your time and we wish you all the best.